So, that was a bit of an anti-climax, wasn't it? After all the summer hype and it was all looking so good and all our signings and great manager and loads of money spent, I think the anticipation was going to be that we were going to rip up trees from day one. And hey-ho, we had a bit of a reality check. I can't be too down about it because it's the first game of the season against a team who will, if they don't win the league, will probably finish second. And don't forget, they were Champions League finalists. You don't do that if you're a bunch of numpties. Plus the fact they've strengthened, so they are a force to be reckoned with. Now, if we'd have had our first game of the season and we'd have been at home to Cardiff, say, and lost 4-0, I'll be putting what little bit of this I've got left out big time. But the fact it was away to the Scousers, in some respects, I think that's really, really good because it's a game we were probably never going to win. I mean, beforehand, I'd hoped we might squeeze a draw, but they are a good side, and I would rather get that game out of the way now whilst we're trying to establish ourselves and learn and develop, rather than in 3 months' time, and use a lot of the things that come out of that game yesterday. And I'm sure Pellegrini's going to take an awful lot from that when he goes back and he looks at all his video clips and all that, and does all his post-match analysis of it himself. I think he's going to. He's definitely going to straighten it out. It's not going to happen overnight. And, you get this false dawn of a few decent pre-season games, which mean nothing, absolutely nothing. But I say, much rather we went to there where probably most people are going to get turned over this season, lose, get it out of our system, take some learning points, move on, and then, in a few weeks' time, when we do play the likes of Brighton, Cardiff, people that are probably going to be more bottom-end table, we've clicked into gear and we haven't really got to then raise our game against a team like Liverpool. It's done. It's forgotten about. It's finished. We're bottom of the league, so the only way is up, innit? And hopefully we'll get a result. Again, to be honest, I'm not actually confident we're going to get a result against Bournemouth, or Arsenal. I think our results will start coming after the pre-season break. There just seems to be too much to do. Anyway, probably before I talk a bit more about the game itself, I just want to talk about Sky's coverage, and that was probably the most biased, one-sided, dreadful hour prior to a game I think I've witnessed. I mean, we've actually got no mentions at all. There was a little interview with Pellegrini, about 10 seconds of touchline banter, and that was it. It was nothing. Excuse my dog. There was absolutely no bearing about our summer transfer activity or anything about our players. Nothing at all. It was Liverpool, just this big Liverpool loving, and then interviewing Unai Emery and God knows who else to do with Man City and Arsenal. It's just Sky. That was dreadful, absolutely abysmal. Anyway, enough of that. Moving on. Game itself, I don't know what you can say about it. Really, it was poor from our perspective, but it was a team that is in transition, and there's some great sayings like Rome wasn't built in a day. It wasn't. West Ham won't be built in a weekend or a pre-season. It's going to be built over time. Klopp had a few when his first year in charge. Yeah, a few absolute howlers. And there was people thinking, "Oh, is he gonna be for the chop?" I remember that, sort of like 3/4 of the way through his first season. But look what he's producing now. Okay, yeah, they've got investment, and we will need to keep on investing because we still haven't got a squad good enough for that sort of top 3, 4, 5, probably even. So that's going to be built up over time. But it was a new system, and they obviously are adapting to that. So that again, that's going to take a little bit of time. They're playing a completely different way. But the concern for me is that a lot of Pellegrini's teams, the way he's set up in the past, are built on movement, on speed, on pace, and we still lack it. We've got pace on one wing with Anderson. We don't have a lot of pace in the middle, and don't even get me going about what happened on the right hand side. I felt very sorry for Arnautovic because he was just stranded up there on his own, and defensively, I think it was a big wake up call for Fredericks. Hello, welcome to the Premier League, because you're going to get more of this. But I also felt really, really sorry for him, because obviously they're still learning a new system. He's bombing forward, but when he's getting back, it was noticeable. They talk about this high line. I don't think there's an issue with a high line, providing you're all actually in a line. At the end of the day, it is you're playing an offside trap, and you've got to be joined up, and you've got to know what you're doing. So there's a little bit of harmony needs to come with that. The old Arsenal teams were absolute masters of it. They just get it off to a tee, and it takes time to drill that in. But where I say with Pellegrini's team is what he's had in the past, and what he needs is that if you are going to have that high line, and if you notice, most of that back four was spread across the width of the penalty box, so they were allowing loads and loads of space out wide for their fullbacks to bomb on. Now, if that's happening, our sort of attacking midfield people have got to track back. Now, Anderson was doing it. He was tracking back. He put a lot of tackles in. He was probably working harder going backwards than he was forwards, and that's what Pellegrini wants from one of his players. Antonio was absolutely woeful. It was just like he's put Checo Kouetti's boots on, because the amount of times he was just ambling back. He loses the ball, and there's no sprint in there to try and catch the man up. He just lets him run away from him. It just jogs back. No, sorry, that shouldn't be happening. If it was me, I would be going apoplectic on the sideline if I was managing that team. A couple of times he did get back and get the ball a couple of times, but it was only because he was just ambling back there, just happened to be in the right place. It was no effort put in at all. He was just... I really thought pre-season there was a couple of instances where he was starting to show a few glimpses of the old Antonio. I'm thinking, oh great, okay, this is what we want. Could be like a new signing for us. But no. He was piss poor. Really, 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 I'd say one of the worst players we had out there. And that's nothing to do with the system. It's purely down to his ability and his work rate, and wasn't impressed with him at all. So I did feel a bit sorry for Fredericks, because he didn't have that support which he's going to need, and he's learning a new game. So I'm not, he's going to be a good player. No worries about that. Balbuena and Ogbonna were okay, but again, you've got to try to stop a lot of this stuff at source. And if you look at this, Naby Keita guy that they've got in there, he was all over the show. The energy and the running power of him, he was linking play, he was superb. And that's the kind of mobility that I think we need in our midfield, and we didn't have that. I felt really sorry for Rice in the first half, because again, it was quite clear, excuse me, he's playing in that position at that level for the first time, and he was running around. He put a few challenges in the first half, but to a great extent, I don't think he knew who he was marking, who he was picking up, and he was running around. I don't say like a headless chicken, but not like you'd expect an established defensive centre midfielder to play. And against lesser teams, I'm sure he'll be okay. Again, absolute baptism of fire with a poor lad to actually go in against Liverpool, because they were on fire. So he'll come again. He's good enough, and I'm sure still positive he can make that role his own. But again, he needs to learn. It's not going to happen in one day and a couple of pre-season games. Masuaku, good going forwards. He can't defend, and I know there's this big Masuaku loving on Twitter and West Ham forums, and God knows what the people love him. Again, as I say, good going forward, but when will people realise he is dreadful as a defender. It's just not his. It's not his thing. So we either play him as a midfielder or attacking midfielder. Although he really needs to develop his end ball, but I still think we need cover for Creswell. And obviously Creswell was. I'm guessing he was injured. The fact he wasn't even in the squad, but he's the sort of guy that we really do need a proper defensive left-hand sided person. So as I say, defence was ripped to shreds, but it was ripped to shreds by some brilliant movement by Liverpool. That front three are just bloody awesome, and they're going to rip a lot of good defences apart. And as I say, we're still learning. They've got to kind of get the communication going with one another. You've got an Italian, a Paraguayan, a Frenchman or French-born guy, and an English lad. So they've got to get that understanding and that dialogue going, if you like, as well. Because defending is all about talking to people. But what we can't do is not have the midfield people tracking back and picking up runners, because that is, this is like basic. And I know Pellegrini will be working on that. But his system, as I say, really is dependent upon hard work. And if we can get that going, and they get to play with this high line, and everything clicks into place, we're going to be fine. We will. I still think we're going to have a stunning season, but I don't expect too much over the next couple of games. When Snodgrass come on, I think he did okay. I think he did reasonably well. Yarmolenko again showed a few touches. I think he's going to need game time. It'd be interesting to know if Perez is actually going to be in with a shout next weekend. But then, really, you don't want to make wholesale changes, because if you're just going to keep changing players every week, they're never going to get used to the system. So he needs to sort of kind of stick with the team and work it on a training ground and double sessions if needs be, and just get used to playing together, which I'm sure is going to happen. I say the one highlight to me, I thought Fabianski did well. Fair play to him. I said beforehand I would have preferred Adrian in goal, but Fabianski was. He probably saved us from a 6 or 7-0 drubbing. To be honest, he was really, really good. Made a couple of absolutely superb saves, but it will come, and it's not like we've gone and we've played a team that's going to be struggling all season and got battered by them. We've got battered by a bloody good football team, and we will get better. No two ways about it. I'm not despondent. I was a bit peed off yesterday, based more on the fact of the expectation and the build-up, and you're just expecting this wonderful, in theory, expecting this absolutely wonderful start to the season, and it didn't happen. But that said, we move on, don't we? It's one game out of a whole season, and we won't be the first team to be bottom of the league for the first one, maybe 2, maybe 3 games, but end up certainly in the top half, and I still think we're going to get way up there when it all clicks. Anyway, on to the next game. Come on, Lions.